We're live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Winged Wonders virtual summer splash. My name is Ian McLeod. You all know me, Executive Director here. I'm sitting in my office here in Holderness. It's a lovely day. It's been a very busy day here at the Science Center. We had over 700 people here today. I heard news that the channel was just crammed with boats. We had a couple of weddings that we did today. We had all kinds of things going on. So very, very busy day. Welcome to everybody. It's great to see you all. Of course, I can't actually see you all. This particular aspect of Zoom, the webinar feature, I have no idea if anybody's actually out there. So I just have to have faith that you're actually listening to me and can hear me, because I get absolutely no feedback. It's sort of a stand-up comedian's worst nightmare. It's just crickets, nothing. I could tell a joke and just laugh at myself. Anyway, I have lots of thank yous for tonight. We want to thank all of our gala sponsors. Hopefully you had a chance to see those scrolling through at the beginning while you're waiting for the event to start. And we'll be highlighting some of those throughout the evening as they sponsor different sections of the evening. Also our various underwriters, all of our donors, not just the ones that support the gala, the summer splash, but all of our activities throughout the year. Thank you for making us, make it possible for us to do what we do. A big thank you to our volunteer committee that I think started planning this year's summer splash about 3 days after last year's event. So they've been busy prepping for this event, although, you know, they don't have to set up tents and catering and, you know, work out the centerpieces for the tables. So I think they're quite relieved not to be doing that. Also, thanks to all of you for being here tonight, and thanks to all the staff who are working, have been working, and are currently working behind the scenes to make this all possible. We're going to start off with a video. We're going to do a bunch of things tonight. We've got some videos for you. We've got some live animals. That's the highlight. And then we've also got some quizzes. We know how you like to be tested to see how well you've read your trusty or your newsletter, to see what columns we've had in there about particular animals, to see if you've been studying those and memorizing those. So we will have some tests. So this first video is sponsored by Tasha and John Morgridge and Lee Stewart. Thank you so much for them to making this possible. And I'm going to send it over to Kirkwood Gardens and the lovely and entertaining Brenda Erler. Take it away, Brenda.
Hi, I'm Brenda Erler, very long-time staff member here at the Science Center over at Kirkwood Gardens. I know a lot of you are familiar with the gardens, and maybe some of you remember when the gardens were first being built, but I can remember back to the day when this used to be the Science Center parking lot. So the Science Center decided to pick up and move operations to be more centralized on the property. But when that happened, that left this big, ugly gravel parking lot in the middle of Holderness. So Sunny Kirkwood, Grace Sunny Kirkwood, was a trustee of the Science Center at the time. She had the vision of a small butterfly and bee garden in this area. But she put together a beautiful design for the garden using some native plants, but mostly plants that are just well adapted to living in northern New England and in New Hampshire, but plants that are valuable to bees, butterflies, birds, hummingbirds in particular. And to truly make it as natural as possible. But right from the start, it's been a total volunteer effort here at the garden, from people digging up plants in their backyard to donate to us, to the landscape gardeners helping to plant, to the volunteers that planted this upper garden, to people coming in weekly and helping maintain everything. So it's really been a community project all the way around. My volunteer crew, I actually have some volunteers that have been here from the very beginning. I have people that are brand new each and every year. Some people are master gardeners. Some people have never planted a thing in their lives and want to learn. I have to say that I've learned more from the volunteers than they've ever learned from me. It's a fantastic group. We have a great deal of fun. We're also trying to make it more educational as time goes on. So we had a new kiosk built a couple of years ago. And in that kiosk, we have listings of every plant in the garden and how to take care of it, the requirements. We have pictures of everything that's blooming that particular week. Mainly, we just want to create a place that people want to come and relax and enjoy. And it's not unusual to see people painting or doing yoga or photography or just relaxing and having a picnic. And I hope all of you'll take advantage of it when you can. Come by on Thursdays to say hi to the volunteers, or better yet, come by Thursdays and be willing to have a tool put in your hand. And that's about it for the garden. I hope to see you here.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, she described herself there very accurately as a very long time employee. I think if it's not 40 years this year, it's very darn close. So just an amazing person who's done just an amazing job. And what a great group of volunteers. Thank you to everybody that comes on Thursday morning and weeds in the rain and looks after the plants and looks after the gardens and just makes it such a wonderful part of the Science Center. So thanks to everybody. Now, Brenda mentioned that part of the reason for the garden is to attract butterflies and bees and other pollinators and birds, hummingbirds, all of those winged wonders that we're featuring tonight. And that sort of backyard birding and being aware of what's in your backyard is very much a part of tonight. And we sent you a little kit. Hopefully, those of you that signed up in enough time, we were able to get these in the mail. If you signed up just within the last couple of days, you probably don't have this. So you know, you didn't get this love. I'm sure we'll get it to you somehow. But included in that kit was your New Hampshire yard list, so you can keep track of all the birds that you can find. I'll let you into a little secret. This was made by New Hampshire Audubon. I put this together about 25 years ago when I was Audubon's communications director, and it looks just the same. So quality piece of work. And then, of course, we sent you the Tweeter Cheater. If you haven't seen the Tweeter Cheater, this is a wonderful way for you to memorize and remember what we call the mnemonics of bird calls, which is very important. Birding, particularly this time of year when there's lots of foliage, is all about song. They're singing, they're calling to each other. And if you don't know the songs of birds, you don't know the common birds in your backyard, you don't know half of what species are in your backyard. So this is a little cheat sheet to help you remember some of the birds. And I'll read out some of them because some of them are quite good. So for instance, let's see, a very easy one. The Phoebe says, Phoebe, Phoebe, Phoebe. Pretty simple. You probably all know that one. Some of them are a little obscure. This one, you have to say this in a very proper British accent. The house finch apparently says, scritchy, scritchy, screer, scritchy, screer, tree. So there you go. Now you know your house finch song. And the other little tip that you have to remember is that some birds seem very particularly focused on food and drink. The goldfinch says potato chip, potato chip. And the alder flycatcher, well, they're really into beer. So they say free beer, free beer. Its close relation, the olive-sided flycatcher says quick 3 beers. So lots of great tips on how to identify these different birds. My favorite of all time is actually a British bird called the yellowhammer. And its song sounds like a little bit of bread and no cheese. And I always remember as a little kid learning that song. And indeed, that's exactly what it sounds like. Every time I go back to Scotland and I hear the beautiful yellowhammer, which is a little bunting sitting out in the field in Scotland saying a little bit of bread and no cheese. It's great. The other thing we sent you a little cheat sheet for identifying raptors. It's coming up on raptor migration season. We're going to be talking a lot about raptors tonight, and you're going to get to see, I'll give you a little tip, you're going to get to see a live raptor quite soon. But that little cheat sheet helps you identify the different raptors that are migrating through. And of course, we sent you these priceless binoculars. I would throw away your Leicas and Zeiss and Swarovskis and all that junk. These are spectacular, made in China. I would say probably about 40 cents for 12 dozen maybe. But anyway, you can use those, maybe give them to your kids, your grandkids, and they can use them to spot birds. So hopefully you enjoyed your backyard birding kit. Now we're going to move on. Oh, we got a quiz for you. I know how much you love quizzes. And so this is our first little quiz. And this particular segment is sponsored by Bellone and DeRubo and Company. Jim DeRubo his auditors have been our auditors for many, many years. We're delighted to have them cooking our books. No, they don't do that. They're wonderful, wonderful auditors. They do great work for us and lots of other nonprofit organizations and for-profit organizations around the Lakes region. And we're very grateful for their sponsorship tonight. So the way this quiz is going to work is we're going to show you 3 sets of talons. Now, the talons are the business end, the sharp end of a raptor. The word raptor means to seize, and so these different feet have different characteristics. Different birds of prey use their feet in different ways to catch their prey, but they all have these sharp talons. So talon number 1, talon number 2, and talon number 3. And we're going to make this easy for you because we're going to give you multiple choice, and we're going to pop up a poll in a second. So you have to match the talons to these birds: great horned owl, the red-tailed hawk, and the osprey. So we're going to pop up the poll in just a second, and you can get up to your computer and start logging in your answers. You can move that poll box off to the side yourself with your mouse if you want, so it's not covering up the image, and we're making it very easy. Talon number 1, is it a great horned owl, an osprey, or a red tail? Talon number 2, talon number 3. Now off you go and register your votes. We'll come back in a second once we see lots of you participating. So off you go. I'm sure you'll all get it right. Voting's coming in fast and furious here. Hopefully everybody's getting a chance to participate. We'll give you a couple of minutes to get your mouse out. Watch your mouse doesn't get grabbed by one of these talons. But as you get to the computer, I guess you could probably work it on your your tablet too. If you're on the tablet, I'm sure a touch screen will work, that you can hit the different questions and answers. And Amanda's behind the scenes keeping an eye on the voting. At some point, when we get to a substantial number of votes, we'll cut it off and we'll see the answers. How are we doing, Amanda? How's the votes going? Hopefully you're not all asleep by now. I think you're all drunk very early. Oh, here we go. We'll see the answers. Okay, talon number 1. We have the 48% has gone for the osprey. That is correct. Talon number 2, 58% went for the great horned owl. And talon number 3, 39% went for the osprey too. So that one, the plurality was not correct. So indeed, the correct answer is talon number 1 is the osprey. They have these amazing scaly talons with massive fish hooks for catching fish, the only bird of prey in the world to feed exclusively on live fish. They have this amazing adaptation of a reversible outer talon. So when they're perched, they have 3 talons forward, but when they are fishing, they can, just at the last second, they throw that outer talon backwards. So they get 2 hooks in the front and 2 hooks in the back on a wriggling fish. The owl, the great horned owl, most owls have that feathering that goes right down their feet and keeps their legs warm. A lot of our owls are northern species and are out very active at night in the cold in the wintertime, and so they need that feathering on their feet. And then by process of elimination, the talon number 3 is the red-tailed hawk. So well done, everybody, and not so well done for those that didn't get it right. I guess I can close that up and we will move along to the next section. So we've done our quiz. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Education Matters Capital Campaign. This is a campaign that we started, oh boy, late 2016, 2017, something like that. We put it on hiatus last year because of COVID. We just focused exclusively on operations. And so we picked it up again late in 2020 to try to wrap it up. And we are delighted to say that we were right at the finish line of raising our $2.8 million. And it's allowed us to do a number of wonderful things. And I want to thank everybody who contributed, who made a pledge, who's continuing to send in their pledges, and to the campaign cabinet, who did such great work reaching out to the community, particularly to Ken Evans, who was the campaign chair. By the way, Ken did promise to wear pants this evening. I believe he is, unlike last year, which was a very scary thing to see. So thank you, Ken, for both of those things. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the aspects of what the campaign has made for us. And we're going to kick that off by handing it over to Paul Brochu. This section of the evening is sponsored by Squam Lakes Financial Advisors, thanks to Bob Maloney, our good friend Bob Maloney, who helped make this happen. And so we're going to pass it over to Paul Brochu down at the Lake Cruise headquarters.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Brochu. I'm the operations manager here at the Squam Lakes Natural Science Center. And we are here at our Lake Cruise headquarters on the river that connects Squam Lake to Little Squam Lake. Lake Cruise headquarters was funded through the generosity of our donors and the people who took part in our Education Matters capital campaign. Prior to 2017, when Lake Cruise headquarters was established, we used to run our cruises off docks at Walters Basin's restaurant. So our Lake Cruise headquarters provides us a few different things. The most important thing, obviously, is the dock space that you see right here. But also, in addition to the dock space, we have our headquarters building, which provides an office space for our cruise coordinators to check people in and out on cruises. It provides storage space for things like life jackets and boat equipment, anchors, lines, things like that. But in addition to the headquarters building itself, we also have our exhibit pavilion here, which has exhibits on lake education, lake turnover, and the various types of wildlife both in and around Squam Lake. Really, you know, what I'd just like to say is just thanks so much for all of our generous donors who made this possible as part of the Education Matters campaign. And this sets us up with a place here on the lake itself that we really didn't have before that will serve us well going into the future. It also provides this pavilion space here, which is an opportunity for us to hold events for donors and other organizations to have a nice covered area on the lake prior to a cruise if they wish to have things like a cocktail party or something like that. So thanks again for all your support, and we look forward to seeing you here.
Thank you, Paul. Paul has been a wonderful addition to the staff. He came on with us last year, and who would have known that a trained epidemiologist would be a helpful thing to have on staff? So Paul has been invaluable as we've gone through the last year and a half of this crazy pandemic. So thanks to Paul for all that he does. Of course, lots of other things happened with the Education Matters campaign. We opened our beautiful Blue Heron preschool. As in the Early Childhood Education Center, the new home of the Blue Heron School. The Blue Heron School started 11 years ago. It's been an enormous success, and we realized we needed to create a unique space specifically for that school. It's been filled every year. You can see here they are outdoors. The kids having a great time. It's an outdoor, nature-based Montessori experience for children aged 3 through 6. They get the entire run of the campus. They're with the naturalists. They're learning down at the floating boardwalk and the pond. They're checking out the new Raptor exhibit when it first opened, looking at the bald eagle here. You'll hear about the amazing sound dishes later on when we do a little behind the scenes at the Raptor exhibit. Here they are out in the field with one of our naturalists. Looks like Jeremy has a compass there, maybe learning about directions and orienteering. And here they are out at the bird feeding station. So it's just been an amazing addition, a wonderful part of the community. We have such wonderful families who are sending successive kids and their families to the school. Some of them even booking as soon as the pregnancy is announced, they're getting their child on the list to make sure they get a spot in the Blue Heron School. So thank you to all the donors that made Blue Heron possible. It really has been a terrific addition to the Science Center campus. Now the best part of the program, we're going to go live up to the classroom. This portion of the program is brought to you by Grossman Family Charitable Foundation. Thank you so much for making this possible, and Ann Lovett and Steve Woodsum. Thank you to all of them for making this portion of the evening possible. I'm going to hand it over now to our Education Director, Audrey Eisenhower, with a very special winged wonder. Over to you, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Ian, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are thrilled to have you here virtually with us this year, and we appreciate your support. And when we knew our theme for the evening was Winged Wonders, there was no question about what animal we wanted to introduce you to, and that, of course, is, hopefully some of you know what you're looking at here, the Peregrine Falcon. And an amazing winged wonder for sure, and has the esteemed title of fastest animal on the planet. And yes, it would even beat a cheetah. The kids always ask us that. So the Peregrine Falcon I just want to talk to you a little bit about peregrine falcons and what they eat and how they catch them, where that speed comes in, and then a little bit about the story of peregrine falcons in New Hampshire and how we almost lost these amazing winged wonders. So peregrine falcons have some pretty specific requirements about where they live. Amanda, would you mind sharing some photos for me? We're going to look at that first habitat picture. And an important consideration for peregrine falcons when they're looking for a place to live is where they're going to be able to nest safely. And so for peregrine falcons, cliffs are what they are looking for as their nesting locations. Makes a lot of sense. It's a great safe place to nest. Not too many predators can access the nest when it's on the side of a cliff. And as something that flies, they can easily access that. So it saves them from some predation. But cliffs are not always readily available or plentiful. So they will take some substitutions. And next slide, Amanda. If you are in an urban or a developed area, tall buildings are pretty close to cliffs. And so peregrine falcons will even live in cities and nest on top of buildings. And here in New Hampshire and Manchester on the Brady Sullivan Tower, we have a nest box, thanks to New Hampshire Audubon and their work right in Manchester. And if it's not a tall building, it could be a bridge. If you look closely on the right-hand side of this bridge, maybe Amanda, can you circle that little box with your cursor? Yeah, that's a nest box put up on the side of a bridge that peregrine falcons are using. So cliffs are their primary choice, but if it's not a cliff, they will take some of these human substitutions. And next picture, I believe, is going to be those cute little chicks. Yeah. And they're not much of nest builders. They're not going to bring in a bunch of sticks and line that nest. Maybe just scrape out a little spot on the rock, if that. Their eggs are going to be laid right there. And then these youngsters are going to grow up on that cliff face or on the side of that building or on the side of that bridge. I always wonder what that first flight is like. I hope they're ready when they take that leap. But a safe place to raise and to grow up, and for peregrines, a good place to hunt from. They are aerial predators, and their prey is also going to be found in the air. Thanks, Amanda. You can bring us back. They are hunting other birds, and that can be something from as small as a robin up to waterfowl size. So impressive hunters. And a couple different ways that they can catch their prey. It might be just direct pursuit of a bird, a single bird, or if there's a flock of birds and the peregrine falcon just comes in, and in that direct pursuit type of flight, they can reach speeds of up to almost 70 miles per hour, which is pretty impressive, right? If you think about driving down the interstate and if you look over and a peregrine falcon was keeping pace with you. So that speed at direct pursuit, but that's not where they get that title of fastest flyer, because there is another method they use for hunting, and that is to gain the advantage of height. So peregrines will fly maybe 300 feet up to 2,000, maybe even 3,000 feet up in the air, and they use these gigantic eyes they have to scan down below them and find a bird that's flying. And once they see and spot their prey down below them, they are going to go into what is called a stoop or a dive. Maybe you can show us that picture, Amanda, if you would. So the peregrine is flying way up above their prey. They spot it with their eyes. Then what they'll do is tuck in their wings and head straight down, head first, towards their target, keeping an eye on it the whole time. And this is the position in which they can reach those amazing, impressive, fastest animal on the planet speeds. They've been clocked at speeds over 200 miles per hour in this stoop. Thank you, Amanda. So you imagine you're that unsuspecting robin or starling or something flying along, and all of a sudden out of the sky above you from several hundred to 1,000 or more feet at 200 miles per hour comes this peregrine falcon. And they will use, I'm going to bring this bird right up to the camera so you can take a look at her feet. They will use these impressive long toes. Yeah, if these were in that talon quiz, you would have noticed a great difference between the length of those toes. So they use these long toes. Once they nail their prey from coming out of that stoop, they'll pull up, open their wings. They might hit it sort of with their fist and then open up and wrap those long talons right around their prey. Then they're going to fly down to the ground with it. Pretty impressive predator, and certainly a winged wonder. But I mentioned we almost lost these birds, and that was due to humans starting to use a pesticide called DDT. Back in World War II, we were using DDT to kill insects, and that was keeping people healthy and safe. Keeping diseases from being transmitted to humans seemed like a good thing. So after the war, we brought it back. We started spraying it in orchards and neighborhoods and using it widely. What we didn't know is that that chemical persisted in the environment. It didn't break down and it didn't go away. So insects contaminated with this pesticide were being eaten by small birds. And then those small birds would have that chemical in them. And then the peregrines were eating lots of those birds. So the amount of the DDT that was accumulating in peregrine's body was increasing and increasing. But it didn't kill the peregrines. What it did was cause them to not be able to process calcium correctly. So when they laid their eggs, the eggshells were too thin. And when they sat on them to incubate them, they broke. So we started seeing no new peregrines added to the population. And by the 50s, the populations were crashing. Here in New Hampshire, by the early 60s, we had no peregrines left at all in our state, nesting in any of their historical places. It wasn't until 1973 that DDT was banned. And that was thanks to people like you and me who spoke up. Rachel Carson's seminal book, and just the work of people talking to their elected officials and making change happen. So DDT was banned in 1973, and reintroduction efforts of peregrines began. So peregrines were raised and released into the wild. We didn't have our first peregrine nesting back in New Hampshire until 1981 in Franconia Notch. For 20 years, these birds were gone. Our closest local nest in Rumney, New Hampshire, didn't see a pair back until 1995. Amanda, can you bring up that graph of the peregrine recovery? Since that time, peregrines have been doing well. Here on this graph, there's 3 lines that you see, each in a different color. The blue is pairs, territorial pairs, so birds that have established a territory. Red are numbers of nests that are active. Not every pair ends up nesting. And then the green is the number of young that were fledged. Not every pair that nests is successful in raising a young. So those are the difference between those numbers. But you can see the steady increase that's happening. And 2020 was a successful year with about 24 pairs nesting in our state. So thanks to human action, we were able to right the wrong that we had unknowingly made by using DDT. And fortunately, we have these birds back. They were an endangered species at one time federally. They've been removed from the federal endangered species list. Here in New Hampshire, they're still listed as a threatened species. New Hampshire Fish and Game, New Hampshire Audubon is still working actively to manage these birds. A lot of those cliffs they nest on are also places people like to climb, to go rock climbing. So there's a lot of work to continue to protect this important species. But certainly a winged wonder. I hope you get the opportunity to see one. And I'd be happy to take any questions you have. We're using the Q&A tonight. So if you can type your questions in that Q&A, Ian can relay them to me.
So let me see, we've got just a little not a question necessarily, but just a comment from Emily Preston saying, woohoo, thanks to the donors and campaign volunteers. Thank you, Emily, for that. Question from Linda, what happened to this bird's wing?
Yeah, great question, Linda. Thank you. Yeah, you'll notice that this bird has a pretty obvious wing injury, and in fact, it is missing half of its wing. We don't know exactly what the trauma was that this bird sustained before it came to the wildlife rehabilitator, where we got it from, whether it was ran into a building, or whether it was hit by electric wires or hit by a car, or we're not sure the exact mechanism of injury for this bird. But it did end up at a wildlife rehabilitator with this broken wing. They tried to fix it. It didn't heal right. Ended up having to be partially amputated. So obviously not a bird that could survive in the wild, with a bird that relies on such fast and impressive flight. So this bird lives with us and now has the important job of meeting folks like you, as well as all the hundreds and thousands of school kids and camp kids and families that we interact with every year, and give them the opportunity to see these magnificent animals up close and learn a bit more about them.
It's great. We got some more questions here. How heavy is the falcon you are holding?
That is a great question. And based on their size, not as heavy as you might guess. This bird probably weighs, I'm going to guess, around 2 pounds, maybe. I don't know her exact weight. But if you had a cat this size, it would weigh a lot more than that. But birds are designed for flight. So everything about them is designed to be lightweight, from hollow bones to these feathers, which are a really lightweight covering, to even the adaptation of coughing up some of the parts of the food that they eat, so they don't have to bother digesting it and keeping all of that in their system as they're trying to fly. So parts like bones and fur or feathers get coughed up, not as nutritionally valuable and not worth the weight and the energy.
So we've got some more great questions here from Jim and Nancy Ainsworth. Great presentation. Thank you, Jim and Nancy. What are the birds' migratory patterns? So where do peregrines go?
Yeah, well, peregrines, their name means the wanderer, and you can find peregrine falcons on every continent except Antarctica. So these birds are widespread. They're not just ours here in North America. And here in New Hampshire, or in North America, I'll start there, peregrines might wander as far as the very tip of North America, all the way down to South America. They may travel 10,000 miles in their migratory journey. Really impressive migrators. Here locally, some of our birds might not migrate. I know that some of the birds that live in cities where they have pigeons to eat that are there year round, they don't necessarily need to leave. Birds that are nesting on cliffs and eating species of prey that might be migratory, those birds are likely going to migrate. They might go down just to the southern part of the United States. They might go down into Mexico or a little farther even. So it really depends on where the bird is living and their specific circumstances as to how far they go.
That's great. You actually answered somebody else's question there. They were asking what peregrine means, and you mentioned wandering. Peregrinations is such a wonderful term for going off on a sojourn or off on a wander. Are there any peregrines on Squam? From Lisa Gordon.
We do not have any peregrines nesting on Squam. Again, that cliff requirement is really specific to them. So, maybe they could find a place like on, Rattlesnake or something, but not quite the dramatic cliff that they're looking for. And Ian, you might have better knowledge of local peregrine nesting sites. Rumney is the closest one that I know of, on the Rumney Rocks climbing area, which they close a portion of every year, and climbers are aware of why they're doing that, and the community is really respectful of that, so that those peregrines can nest successfully without humans interrupting them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every once in a while one stops off on West Rattlesnake. That cliff would be a nice place to stop and eat a flicker or a jay or something like that. But they're certainly not nesting there. And Rumney, there are actually 2 pairs in Rumney now, would be the closest pairs that we know of to Squam. So they'll pass through, they'll migrate over. But yeah, we need a big cliff somewhere close by for them to nest.
Yeah, Franconia is another great place to see them possibly too.
And we'll just wrap up the question here. We've got a couple more. What is her name? That's a question that Audrey gets all the time, and I know exactly what her answer will be. So I'll let her say that we don't name our animals.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we call her Peregrine Falcon, which is super creative. But the reason behind that is that we like people to remember these are wild animals and not pets. So we don't give them pet names. We just call them the species that they are. Sometimes we use a number at the end of that to indicate the year they came to live with us, especially if we have more than one of something. But really the wild is the best place for them, and that's where we hope that they get to stay.
Excellent. And then the last question is, why not Antarctica? What a great question. And I'm not sure I would be able to answer exactly why not. It's probably to do with food.
I'm going to guess it has to do with food and nesting availability.
Yeah, I guess the cliffs down there. But yeah, for whatever reason, they have not made it down to Antarctica. And there's really no other
equivalent. Or just the journey of getting there. The difficulty of accessing. I'm not really sure. I haven't read really any thoughts on why that is the case, but that is certainly the case. I don't know. The tourism board needs to step it up there, I guess.
Right. There we go. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you so much to the Peregrine, and just certainly a perfect example of a winged wonder. The Peregrine really exemplifies that. So thank you to Audrey. We'll go back to Audrey in a little while with another special guest. So you'll get a chance to see another live animal up close and ask some questions. Now we're going to move on. We're going to keep it moving here. We're getting a little behind our schedule, but we're going to move on to our Raptor training and enrichment. And I'm going to get rid of this Q&A right now. It's sort of up on the screen here. And this portion of the program is sponsored by Sarah and Wynn Brown, who for 3 generations have been visiting the Science Center and creating wonderful memories. They say they especially love the saw-whet owl and appreciate everything the naturalists do. Well, thank you, Sarah and Wynn. We appreciate all that you do for the Science Center, and you're about to see one of our wonderful naturalists. We're going to hand it over now to Josh Flagg and Aubrey Volker, who are going to tell you a little bit about Raptor training and enrichment.
All right, let's go. Good training allows you to get good autonomy, allows the birds to have autonomy, allows them a little more freedom, allows them to partake in their own care, right? And great for enrichment. There is nothing more enriching than exploration. Every time we give them a bit of food, we say, thanks for doing the thing that you're doing, namely staying on the fence post and not flying away. We say thanks for that. It's also really engaging for visitors to see birds and animals interacting with their immediate environment, walking around, interacting, moving from one place to another. It's really, really engaging because it kind of shows you how they might act in the wild a little bit. I'm always looking out for stress behaviors, as opposed to just looking around like he's doing now, checking out his environment. If he gets a little bit lower and starts looking around really fast, that could be looking for a bit of an escape route maybe, or just, tensing up his body carriage. That is when priorities in animal training, animal welfare and safety, those are the big ones, right? And so to be safe, to minimize risk of injury to him and any visitors that might be around, he starts tensing up like that and getting low, looking for an escape route. That's when I come up and I say, okay, we'll take a little bit more of a walk and we will go somewhere else that's not right here because we're a little stressed for some reason. Typically, getting him to a higher point is a nice way to combat any stressful behavior that we might see. Enrichment is basically any form of cognitive or mental stimulation that you give to animals in human care to occupy their time, make them work a little bit for their food, just like they would in the wild.
Hi, my name's Audrey. I am the Animal Care Training and Enrichment Coordinator here at Squam Lakes Natural Science Center. So part of my job is just really coordinating and organizing all the enrichment that we do for all of the animals that we have here. So with our raptors, there's all kinds of enrichment that we give them. And the main focus is to try to get the raptors to exhibit their natural behaviors. whether that's, tearing up their prey to eat it, searching and foraging for food, all of those things. And how we do that, we have to get really creative. So some of the items we might give them is, newspaper and paper bags that they rip and shred apart, put all their different food in egg cartons, cardboard tubes, and even heads of lettuce. So the other part of my job is to also coordinate all the training that we do with the animals here at the Science Center. So for our raptors, both our program raptors that you see in different education programs, as well as our raptors here at our brand new Raptor exhibit, we do trainings to really get them comfortable with the staff being around and them just even coming to the staff. We want to be able to build a really strong bond with them, create that trust account so that they can participate in their own medical care. If they're able to do that, that not only decreases their stress, but increases their welfare as well. And that's really our main goal here, is to increase their animal welfare and give them the best possible care and welfare we can. So some of the things that we work on is just simply getting the birds to come close to us. Because if they want to come towards us, that means they are comfortable with us being around. We can get a good look at their bodies, make sure nothing is going on, no medical attention is needed. And other things we can then do from there is have the birds go onto a scale on their own and get consistent weights. They might even be able to go into a crate if we ever have to move them from the exhibit to somewhere else, maybe take them to a vet. Again, ways that they can participate in their own care without having to stress them out.
I muted myself, so I wasn't, my squeaky chair didn't override what was going on there. So thank you to Josh and to Audrey. They do fantastic work behind the scenes. We obviously have a large collection of animals, and we're very proud of our AZA accreditation here. And that's very much a part of it, is making sure the animals, even though they're unfortunately in captivity for one reason or another, we want to make sure that they have the best care possible. So moving along here, we're going to have another quiz for you. I know how much you love these quizzes. So this particular section is sponsored by Squam Lakes Plumbing and Heating. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this event. And we're going to do another little quiz for you. So we're going to show you a photograph. This one's pretty easy, and we're not going to take very long to do this. We want you to identify what this wing belongs to. And we've given you a little bit of a clue by zooming in on a portion of the wing there. So we're going to pop up a poll. And we're going to make it really easy. This is just too easy. You don't even really have to put any effort into this. So is this the wing of a northern saw-whet owl, a crested caracara, which is a type of related to falcons that's down in the southwest and Florida, or a barred owl, the most common owl that we have here in New Hampshire? So take a few seconds to make your votes count. Again, you can move the poll out of the way if you want to take a look closely at the wing, and we're going to keep that up for a few seconds and see how you do. Most of you did pretty well on the last quiz, and oh, look at that. Pretty much clearly 97% have chosen the barred owl, and you are correct. The reason we zoomed in, of course, on the feather edges of feathers, and there's a beautiful picture of the barred owl, is that the barred owl, like all owls, need to fly silently at night, and so they have that serrated edge to the wing feathers that allows them to fly almost silently at night, so they can sneak up on mice and have them for dinner. Okay, we're going to keep moving along here. We're getting a little behind on our schedule, but we're now going to take another video exploration, a little behind the scenes at the Raptor exhibit. This section is sponsored by Squam Boat Livery and Duncan. Guess they're not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. Duncan of Plymouth, Ashland, Campton, and Lincoln. Thank you so much for keeping us all caffeinated. And I'm going to hand it over now to a behind the scenes look with Jeremy Phillips, our naturalist, and his buddy, Jeremy Junko. Over to you, Jeremy's.
We're here at our new Raptor exhibit. A lot of time and energy and teamwork has really gone into pulling the Raptor exhibit together. I'm here with Jeremy Junko, and we're gonna be exploring the Raptor exhibit, showing you a little bit of the behind the scenes action, explaining how some of the decisions were made. Are you excited about that? Yeah, I am. These massive facial discs were created to simulate a facial disc that the owl's feathers make around their face to allow them to hear better. Look, it's a picture of one of our program owls. Look, there's Jeremy Junko. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Wow. Yeah, I can hear you. All right, let's explore what the rest of the exhibit has. One of the amazing things about putting this Raptor exhibit together is the teamwork that it really takes. And the choice here in each exhibit are the 3 different types of perching, and soon to be 4 different types of perching that is here. You're gonna notice there's some carpeted perches, there's some natural sisal rope that's here, and astroturf as well. So they have a variety of choices to where they perch. All of our enclosures have just the right amount of space for each of these birds. And we used AZA as a standard for creating the amount of space in here. You can see from left to right and also up and down too. The roof is high, so our flighted birds can fly, and the roof has some openings in it as well where rain can come in. So the birds can sit in the rain, they can sit out of the rain. It's really up to them and allows for them to sit wherever they want. As you can see, we have mesh that covers the entire outer wall of each of our bird exhibits in the Raptor here. And believe it or not, it's probably gonna be hard for you to see, but there's 2 layers of this mesh. One on the very outside of the post you see here, and one just on the inside of that too. And that helps keep predators further away from our Raptors. Is that Jeremy Junko up there? I think he went this way. Did he go in this egg? As most of you know, our exhibits are crafted and really well thought out to give people the maximum experience while they're here. So we have these giant eggs that you can crawl into, which is a total immersive experience. Most of our exhibits are done in-house. That makes the process go a little bit smoother. We can fix things really well, and we know what to do when things go wrong. But some of our exhibits, like the owl ears, were done by a local builder, and we have some other exhibits where we bring in some artists to do some of the artwork. While we're looking behind the scenes, let's take a look behind our animal care doors. Each of our Raptor exhibits has a closet between the exhibits, which offers them an opportunity to go into each exhibit and have all the supplies they need right at their disposal. Look how big the door is, too. You could get a wheelbarrow in here if you needed to. So we have this 2-door system. You can close this door behind you, lock it, and then you can see each door for our Raptor enclosures. The red-shouldered hawks are right behind this door, and you can see the hawks right through the peephole, so you know what's going on before you enter or open that door. Hey, look, Jeremy Junko's on the migration flyway. Oh, there goes Jeremy Junko to the Songbird feeding station. Well, I hope you enjoyed our tour of the Raptor exhibit. These brand new buildings are beautiful, and they've taken a lot of time and work from all of our staff to make happen, and I hope that you enjoy coming out and visiting them soon. We'll see you on the trail. I'll go find Jeremy Junko.
Thanks to the Jeremys. Obviously, they coordinated their wardrobe. They both had the same shorts and sneakers on. I don't know how that happened. Hopefully, Jeremy's daughter Clara doesn't see that. She'll be very confused. I think she's got two daddies. But I should also mention the wizardry on the video this year has been done by Danny Holman, who's our marketing intern, who's done all of the video sections for tonight, and he's really done a fabulous job. We're going to be posting all of these little video clips on our YouTube channel. Give us a couple of days. Amanda will probably get those up next week. I should also mention Amanda's working behind the scenes doing all this coordination of the tonight's event. So thanks to Amanda. And we'll actually have a recording. We are recording the whole evening tonight. That'll get posted on our YouTube channel as well. Okay, moving on to our last section here. This section is sponsored by Meredith Village Savings Bank and Pam and Larry Tarika. Thank you so much to both of those entities for making this possible. A particular thank you to Meredith Village. Last year, of course, going through the pandemic, we had to apply for 2 different rounds of the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. And I have to say, working with Meredith Village, they made it as easy as it possibly could be. It was a very daunting prospect to have to go through that, something we've never had to go through. And so it was great that Meredith Village was there to kind of guide us through the whole process. We've been doing our banking with them for many, many years. So now we're going to hand it back over to the classroom to Audrey, who's got another one of our winged wonders.
Yes, thanks, Ian. And we have just a few minutes left, so I want to introduce you to one more winged wonder, and we're going to switch gears on you here. And instead of our feathered winged wonders, we're going to go to our only mammal that flies. So this is a mounted version of a big brown bat, and I'm going to pull our live one out and bring it right up to the camera for you in just a second here. But I think the most common response we get when we show people this and we tell them that this is the big brown bat is, well, it's not very big. And of course, that is because you have to compare it to the little brown bat, right? Another species that we have here in New Hampshire. So it makes sense when you can see them side by side that way. But tonight, what I want to share with you is not about how bats catch their prey, which you probably know is through echolocation, or about the number of insects that they eat, maybe 1,000 insects per bat per night, and the importance in the environment that they serve as those insectivores, helping to control insect pests that might be pests to humans and pests to agriculture. Super important animals in our natural world and our natural system. But what I want to talk to you a bit tonight is about white nose syndrome and how, again, we're really seeing an impact to our bats. And this story, unlike the Peregrine story that is really ending with a success and a comeback, this story doesn't have an ending yet. We're still really in the midst of this situation. So I'm going to pull this bat out, bring it right up to the camera for you to see. So bear with me one second here. All right, so here we have our big brown bat. And as with the animals here at the Science Center, this one is not able to fly, which is why it lives with us, but it is happy to eat. So I'm going to have it snack a little bit while I'm talking to you. So he's eating some mealworms there. White nose syndrome, hopefully you've heard of this. It's a fungus that originated in Europe. Our bats here in North America did not evolve with it. They don't have any natural resistance to it. It affects them when they're hibernating. So 5 of our 8 species of bats in New Hampshire hibernate. They do that in caves or mines, places like that. And there are consistent temperatures in those environments and they don't freeze, which makes them great places to hibernate. It also makes them great places for that fungus to thrive and survive. The fungus grows on the bats while they are hibernating, and it creates a white fuzz on their nose and on their wings, which is why it's called white nose syndrome. But it causes some lesions on their skin. It also causes them to wake up while they're hibernating, burn essential fat storage, and then leave seeking energy in the form of food and also water in January or February when they can't find those things. And so the bats perish. White nose syndrome was first discovered in New York in 2006. Amanda, can you show us that animation of the spread of white nose syndrome? So if you watch, the red X is where white nose syndrome started. The different colors represent the different years, and each different color is a year of spread of this fungus. And where orange is 2019, and then red is 2021. Yeah, maybe you can play that one more time. So here in New Hampshire, white nose syndrome first showed up in 2009. Prior to that, when biologists would go into the hibernacula, the caves and abandoned mines where our bats would hibernate, and they would count, they might get nearly 4,000 bats. Thanks, Amanda, you can bring us back. In the winter, hibernating here in New Hampshire. We have more bats than that here in New Hampshire, but a lot of our bats fly to Vermont or New York to hibernate because there's more caves and places for them there. So here in New Hampshire, we had about almost 4,000 bats hibernating prior to white nose syndrome. In 2011, biologists went in to do the winter count, and instead of nearly 4,000 bats, they found 16. And in 2018, they repeated that winter survey and still only found 26. That wasn't very many years ago. The hardest hit in New Hampshire has been the little brown bats and the northern long-eared bats. We've lost 99% of some of these species, which, if you start doing the math about each bat eating 1,000 insects per night, it's a good reason to be concerned. Now, in the summer, we do have more bats than that. So I mentioned that the bats will go to Vermont or New York to hibernate. So we do see an increase in bats in the summer in our summer colonies. Here at the Science Center, you might have seen our bat house. We participate in New Hampshire Fish and Game's Summer Bat Colony Count, which is a citizen science project. If you have bats at your house in the summer, you can participate as well. Historically, before white nose syndrome, we would see 400 or so bats in our bat houses. The lowest count we had during white nose, the height of the initial impact of white nose syndrome, we only had 40 bats here at the Science Center during the summer, right? Our bats, in our bat houses, they don't hibernate there. It's just a summer colony. But we've been doing those counts again, and we're happy to say that in the last year and this year, we're seeing, again, around 400 bats in our bat houses here at the Science Center in the summer. So the bats that have survived, the thinking is that they have some natural resistance to that fungus. And we hope that they will be able to carry that onward and start to rebuild the population. But with only having one pup a year, it's going to take a really long time. But it's still spreading. Scientists are still actively working on this. If there's any kids out there, maybe you will be the one to solve this problem and help save our bats. It's certainly something we need to do. So next time you see a bat flying out at night, know that it is truly a winged wonder. Appreciate that you're seeing it and the service that it's providing in insect control. And maybe think about putting up a bat house. Maybe you can help these critters. Any questions anyone has out there before we turn you loose tonight?
Thank you, Audrey. That was fascinating. That really is an amazing animation to see how quickly that spread from the East Coast and then jumped over to the West Coast. So let's see if we have anything in the Q&A coming up here. Got to have some. Oh, there's a nice view of the bat on its little roost there. Here we have a question from Maureen. It says, how do you set up a bat house and what do you feed them?
How do you set up a bat house is a great question, and I'm going to refer you to the ultimate source on that. It's Bat Conservation International. They have a great website. There's plans for building your own bat house, what to look for if you're buying a bat house, considerations to make when installing one, how to keep the bats safe from predators when putting it up, what direction it should face. They like heat, so it needs to be facing the sun. So Bat Conservation International, they've done lots of research on bat houses, and they've boiled it all down to some really great guidelines. So I'll refer you to that. And if you're putting up a bat house, the cool thing is you don't have to feed them. They're going to eat all the insects flying around your yard. Here at the Science Center, we feed our bats those little mealworms that you saw me feeding it, which are larval beetles. So those are just baby beetles in their larval form. The bats we have here don't fly. That's why they live with us. They have wing injuries. And so having those insects that don't fly helps them too. So that's what we feed our bats here. But if you put up a bat house and you're lucky enough to have bats move in, they'll be doing you a service by eating some of those insects that we're not so fond of, like mosquitoes.
A great question here from Nan O'Neill. She said, just checking that she heard right, she said, they only have one young. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, one per year. And so they'll have those in those maternity colonies. So if you've seen our big bat house that we have out on the trail, that's a maternity colony for bats. So they occupy it in the summer. They'll have their young in there. Before those young can fly, the moms that are in there will leave to go out and hunt in the evenings. And when they come back in, they can find their individual pup hanging in this box with hundreds of others because they can recognize each other's call. So that's how they know how to get back to theirs. But it's going to take a long time to rebuild that population with only one young per year. Fortunately, they have a long lifespan if they can survive threats like white nose syndrome. There's other threats to bats too, but they can live 20 years or more. So they are relatively long-lived.
Oh, you answered Jim and Nancy's question about lifespan, so up to 20 years. One from Sam here. In our house, we've had 3 bats inside. Some carry bacteria, but I'm not worried.
So occasionally you'll get a bat in your house, and the best thing to do is just open all your doors and windows, turn out the lights, close any interior doors, and wait for it to fly out, because they will do that. The main concern that we have with bats is that they can carry rabies. So you never want to pick up a bat with your bare hand. You saw me holding this bat with my bare hand. I should mention that I would never do that with a wild bat. This bat has lived with us here. We know that it doesn't have rabies. Plus our staff that interact with our animal collection are vaccinated against rabies. But I would never do that with a wild bat. If you find a bat on the ground or something like that, use a box and a towel or something to scoop it up if you have to move it. Bats can't fly when they're on the ground. They have to be hanging to achieve flight. If you find a bat in the winter you think is sick, great time to call Fish and Game and let them know. Those are things that they're actively monitoring our bats and they'd want to know about.
One more question and then we'll wrap it up. This is from Griffin. You mentioned rabies. How likely is it that a bat would carry rabies here in New Hampshire?
It's possible. I don't know the percentage of bats that carry rabies. It's not necessarily any higher than any other mammal that could be carrying rabies. It's certainly a possibility in wild animals. To ensure that you never get rabies from a bat, don't pick one up. The bats are never going to fly at you or bite you unless you try to hold it. So it's really shouldn't be a concern and an easy thing to avoid.
Excellent. Thank you, Audrey. As ever, you managed to answer all of those questions. It was lovely to see another winged wonder. Thank you all for your participation tonight. We've run a couple of minutes over, but somehow we've managed to come pretty close to our hour. Thank you to all of you for being here, for all your support over the last year. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes. Thanks to Amanda for working all the magic there, making all the animations work and the videos. And again, thanks to all of you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your summer. Next year, I'm sure we'll see you in person, and we'll hopefully see you on the trail very, very soon. Thanks again, and good night. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.